Everything ready?
And we are live. Do the share.
All right, 1 second here. Let me do my fun bit. Oh, okay. All right.
Ugh.
Sorry, what's up?
Just have my fingers on the wrong place on the keyboard and trying to type. It comes out garbage. So,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Us people who learn the home keys. All right, we're ready?
typing class in high school.
Yeah, I had to take it too. I was grateful for it.
I didn't have to, but I did. Okay. Yep. Whenever.
All right. Welcome to Heresy and Hearsay, a podcast reclaiming faith in the context of political discussion. I'm Reverend Barney, and you can follow me on Twitter at SethRothII. You can also follow the show on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and any podcast catcher. Just look for Heresy and Hearsay. Please like, share, subscribe, follow. Also, give us a review that helps us and helps others find us. And as always, to help me today, the Mistress of the Dark, Ember.
Hello there. I am September, and you can follow me on Twitch and Twitter at 9 of 12 and hear me on the Geek Grills podcast. Heresy and Hearsay has a Patreon site that you can find at patreon.com/heresy and hearsay, where you can, and you, if you visit there today, it'll help support us. $2 a month goes a long way to help us make this humble show. You can also contribute with bits in Twitch or subscribe for free if you have Amazon Prime.
So today, what we're going to do is because it's a couple of days before Halloween. Halloween, for those who are listening, is on Thursday this week, and today is Tuesday. For those who are listening in the future of 2019, So I thought we would do something a little fun and talk about horror movies. I think both of us enjoy horror movies. Maybe me more than Ember. I'm not sure.
I've been watching
Uh,
horror movies every day for weeks now.
so yeah, we went and saw the first It when it came out in 2017 together. I have not seen the second one because I've been told that the giant spider crab monster exists at a large chunk of the movie, and I am not going to go see that. Thanks. I have a huge fear of spiders. I have seen Lord of the Rings trilogy extended cut for over 300 times. I still don't know what Shelob looks like. So I know I hear the music. I know what it's. I know it so well at this point. That I know when to duck down and just look at my keyboard or my computer or whatever while it's going on. So yeah, I that's not happened. But yeah, I enjoy horror movies. My horror movies. I will be honest. I am a fan of 70s horror movies, not exploitation films per se, but I like 70s horror movies because I don't know, there's like this, it's like somebody took the film and dipped it in dirt before they put it on the it just feels more dirty, more gritty. Like I've listed a couple here as far as what we'll be talking about, but another one I want to briefly touch on is one that stars Dustin Hoffman of all people. Not technically a horror movie, but it's still very good. It's called Straw Men, and it's one of my personal favorites as well. So, but I made a list, and um, so I she just September just typed one in, and I was just like, oh, I should have thought of that one. So what we're going to do is we'll do back and forth, and
Okay.
I'm going to start. And the first one, of course, if we're talking if we're talking about horror movies that have a religious overtone to them, then the one that everybody will immediately think of is The Exorcist. And
That was the only horror movie I ever watched that really actually traumatized me. Um, I grew up Catholic, and I had a babysitter that let me watch it, and I think I was like 12.
Ooh, that's not good because Reagan was 12 in the movie. So yeah, I could see where that
Yeah,
went.
I had serious, horrible nightmares for a few days, and like I couldn't even tell my mom or anything because I wasn't supposed to have watched the movie. Yeah, that one messed with me really, really hard. Like being Catholic, they don't teach you about exorcism because it's not something they actually do generally. Um, and I was really deep into my religion and stuff. So yeah, I was terrified of being
and I,
possessed.
and some of the imagery of that possession and some of the things that there are scenes that I don't think would ever get done today, like the scene with the crucifix. I'm not going to go into detail with that,
Mm-hmm.
but that one you just go, wow, that's I mean, there's some disturbing imagery, but that one in my brain just goes, oh, I don't think they could ever no, no. I don't think they could ever get that done past anybody today, especially with the age of the actress that was doing that scene. For everybody knows what we're talking about, so
Yeah. And I don't know if it's true, but I remember hearing that she actually, the actress, was later had to go through some serious psychological deprogramming. Basically, she was traumatized by having done the film.
yeah, I haven't heard. I know that for a while she actually I know that the actress kind of went off and did her own thing for a while, and I understand that there were some drugs involved and stuff like that, and she got cleaned up and everything. But I will say this on the flip side of that kind of horror stuff, she did also produce one of the funniest movies of all time, which was Repossessed. I still love that. It is a product of its time because of the fact that there are some stuff that is very um, dated. Like televangelism was huge back when this movie first came out. It's still huge, but it's what I'm saying. It was like epically huge. It was in the zeitgeist at the time, so it was definitely there. But that was a funny movie, but it also still it poked fun at the religion, at religious people, and that kind of stuff. So I really enjoyed that movie too, and I think it was a nice bookend to the Exorcist, because I also saw the second movie, Exorcist 2, The Heretic, and that one should not be watched by anyone. That's I hear the third one is really good, and that the because he rewrote because Blatty wrote that one again, and it's a very good movie. It's a little darker. But so what's your first movie you want to talk about?
The Seventh Sign. I didn't realize until I was looking it up for this that it was a flop because
Mm,
I loved it. Now, of course, having a bit of a crush on Demi Moore might have helped, but serious. It was funny. My husband said it was like that one was like too religious, right? Because it was really heavy on the signs of the apocalypse. It was an
mm,
apocalyptic film based on Christian mythos, and but I thought it was fantastic. I mean, it was really good storytelling. It was the characters you could relate to. Um, this pregnant mom uh, is, having trouble, and there's all these other signs going on. There's an execution that's going to happen of someone who's disabled who had killed someone in God's name. Um, and she ends up trying to like stop this execution because she realizes, because basically the second coming of Christ has come to her to
mm.
kind of watch over and see things unfold, and she starts getting hints about what's going on there, and she tries to put and stop the sign. So then suspense, it's very suspenseful. It's very well filmed. It's well acted, of course, and I really like that one of movies with a heavy religious overtone. It's
Mhm.
just it takes that the key elements of the story, it turns them into a story, a narrative, instead of, because I mean the signs of the apocalypse come in Revelation, which is such a disjointed, drug-addled nightmare to read and try to make
Yeah.
sense of, and everyone has their whole uh, interpretations of it that they pick and choose from
Right.
in dogmatic religion um, organizations. But I think they did a fantastic job at making a good narrative. So it's more of like a action suspense than horror
Hmm.
in a lot of ways, but that's usually what I like in my horror. I like psychological drama in my horror, not just a
Hmm.
bunch of gore.
Right. I'm not a big gore fan either. I will watch some gore. As far as that movie, I've seen it once years ago, so I don't. The only thing that I remember from it, and this is nothing against her, is just the roles that she had done before. Demi Moore kind of pulled me out a little bit. It's not that she
Hmm.
wasn't good. She wasn't good in. I think that's the problem. As you see, because of the roles she had done previous to this movie.
I could see that, yeah, because I think it was one of as if you look at a list of her roles, which I'm not right now, but her being serious could pull you out.
Right. And I think that was people were having a hard time doing it, separating. But as far as the symbolism and stuff,
It's like,
it
oh,
was
she
very,
can act, huh?
yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, and I do believe she could.
She's more than
It's just,
pretty. Hmm.
yeah. It's just that at that moment of time, if she'd have done it like a couple of years afterwards, during that time frame, done a couple of kind of transitional roles, I think this movie would have done really well. I think that it's more of where she was in our consciousness at the time that kind of hurt it a little more than anything else. And there's a couple of movies on my list that are not well done, or not well done, but are not considered hits either. So, but I enjoyed them. So yeah, no, as far as that's concerned, I think that was a really good it was a really good view of looking at the signs of the apocalypse,
And having
especially
good
the
guys in a religiously themed horror movie that aren't just the priests, I think
right.
is compelling.
I agree totally with that. So my second one is The Wicker Man, and not the one with Nick Cage, not that, not no. I'm talking about the 1970s. Again, you see a little bit of a pattern here, but that one really kind of sticks out for me. It was like one of my first horror movies I ever saw,
Hmm.
and it's got Christopher Lee in it, which automatically, at that point is you know,
Instant
a re
classic.
instant
Insert actor
classic.
here.
Yeah, and it's also it's
Genre
bec
actor, actually.
yeah, because it's a horror movie, and of course, he made his bones, for lack of a better term, for doing playing Dracula and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a really good movie. It's a slow burn. It's creepy, and more than horrific. But the creep factor is really good, and it's basically, for those that don't know, is this guy sees this girl disappear or whatever. He's trying to find her on this island as they're preparing for a festival. And I'm not going to spoil the ending, but but basically the festival, he finds out, is part of it is they have to sacrifice a virgin, and he thinks this is a little girl.
Don't you hate it when that
Uh,
happens?
I know, and he's a very religious man himself, so of the Christian faith. But this is a cult, or kind of, it's kind of a play on witchcraft a little bit and everything else, and or druidic.
Druidic
Thank you very
tradition.
much.
There you
Yeah. So or at least what people perceived it as. So it was a very good movie. It was very well done. It's considered a classic. So I say that you should definitely, if you can find a copy, which shouldn't be hard. I think you can find the original one. Definitely go and check that one out. All right, what's your second one?
go. Carrie.
Okay.
Now, I've never seen the remake. Have you seen the remake?
I watched a little bit of the remake, and I watched like 20 minutes of it, and I'm going, this is not as no.
Not worth watching. It didn't seem
Yeah.
worth watching to me, so I never got around to it. But the original was a. It didn't scare me, but it was, I think, formative in my early years watching horror. The religious fervor of her mother and
Ugh.
the whole panic when she started to Carrie started her period is kind of a big deal in this movie,
Mhm.
where it's like indicative of being subject to original sin, and her mother is just absolutely, for lack of a better term, hysterical, but I guess it fits here.
Yeah.
Like freaking out and locking her up, and obviously showing her PTSD and trauma from whatever the hell happened when Carrie was younger. And Carrie, and it's interesting in paranormal stuff. A lot of coming of age teenage years are when things like telekinesis, also called poltergeists, right? Like people think they have a
Mhm.
poltergeist in the house. If you look at research on that, I'm sorry, I'm going to get all weird, but if you could talk about religion, I used to do a lot of study of paranormal phenomena, and teenagers, if you have teenagers in the house, that kind of phenomena seems to be more prevalent, and there are theories that it has to do with like the hormonal changes and shifts in your psyche. And well, Carrie gets full on, and she's bullied at school, so there's a lot of relatable things for young viewers in there, without getting too. But no, I mean it's pretty straight out horror because everybody knows things go bad at the prom, and everybody plays a big joke on her. Well, the joke's on them when it all burns down.
Yeah. I've read the book multiple times, and I have seen the original movie. I did see the not the remake, but I did see the sequel.
Mm.
Partly because it was filmed in basically my backyard, and it was filmed at one of the high schools in the county I live in, and I was just like, you know what, this is kind of interesting, and I want to see it. It was not very interesting, but the original is amazing. It was Stephen King's first published book, and it's the book that got him to where he is today, where he could write full time and everything else.
And I
Uh,
never read Carrie, which is odd, come to think of it, because I read a lot of Stephen King. My dad gave me a big bag of Stephen King books, and I read them many years ago. I think in my 20s, and he's a very good writer. For instance, Christine is a
mhm.
fantastic. I mean, not a great movie. Um, a lot of his things have not translated well to movies, like Pet Cemetery, for God's sake. Um, and a lot of his writing is really good. I eventually gave up. I read a whole lot, and then I got to Tommy Knockers, and it was so fucking sloppy, loose ends in it, and I can't abide that
Yeah.
in stuff I read, and I just quit reading them entirely. But I did. I never read Carrie, and I might be willing to pick that up because I am curious about the differences between it and the movie.
There's two big differences. One is the fact that there's a lot of like extra stuff in it, like news clippings or books written about it, stuff excerpts from that. So it's kind of like
Hmm.
your the story is progressing, and as it progressing, you're also seeing these news clippings and interviews of people that knew Carrie in the past or whatever the case may be. Uh,
That sounds interesting. Is that, I mean, kind of like Dracula is told?
it's a little bit like Dracula, yeah,
Hmm.
but instead of it so the story is told as a traditional story, but then there's like supplemental stuff added into the story as well to give you more flavor versus Dracula being told strictly through letters and stuff like that.
Okay. Because Christina's like that too. You get a lot more insight into the main character
Right.
in the book,
Uh,
which
eh,
makes it a million times better. Like understanding his relationship with the world and his relationship with the thing that possesses the car. So.
right. But it's very interesting, and there's even more religious stuff in it than in the movie. It's very. I really do enjoy the book. It's very good. It's a short read. It's very short, unlike what I'm about to discuss. So it's
Yeah, I guess we're on a king kick for a little bit. I mean, I guess it's
uh,
understandable.
so the next one for me is The Stand. I've read the book several times. It's a commitment. It's a commitment because I've read the unabridged version, so it's like 1,159 pages. And so I've read it. I've got it on audiobook as well as on Kindle. I also wanted briefly. I own because, and I have seen it several times as well because it's really good. But at least for a TV adaptation, which is the TV adaptation of The Stand, which was done in '92. I was
94.
in '94. I was in college at the time. Yeah, so yeah, it would be
And there's another
'94.
one coming, apparently, in 2020.
Right, and he is writing an epilogue because he wrote this book back in the '70s, right after I think The Shining. He was writing this book while writing other stuff, and the so a lot of his fans say this is his best work, and it kind of bothers him a little bit. It's like, I've written 50 odd other books besides this, after this one, and this is still my best work. I'm like, yeah, but it's very interesting for those who don't know the plot. It's the government has been working on biological warfare, and it gets loose, and it's basically a form of pneumonia that is 99.1% kill rate on it, and it gets loose in America. There's no way to contain it, and so the first half of the book is watching society fall apart. It becomes post-apocalyptic in front of your
Yeah.
eyes, and then the second part of the book is basically good versus evil. God, which is represented by a 108-year-old black woman, and the dark man, who is Randall Flagg, who is in several of his other stories later on. This is actually kind of the progenitor of like his Dark Towers and stuff like that. So it's a very good book. It's a very the miniseries. I say check it out. Understand that it's mid '90s CGI and effects, so the effects aren't going to be good, but there's still a lot of interesting imagery, creepy imagery, and a lot of
They visually did a good job with the world building there, especially for the time. It was
Mhm.
very much how those of us who were living through that era and lived through the Cold War, I think, imagined post-apocalyptic world to be, whether it was nuclear or biological.
Yeah, and it has some very interesting actors in it. It has Molly Ringwald in it, and it has Rob. Oh, what is his last name? Yeah, I know both of us are like, oh, I shouldn't have brought that up. But anyways, a
I
couple
did
of people
sometimes.
did 80s movies. They were part of the Brat Pack, and seeing them in this kind of post-apocalyptic horror movie, you go, I don't know, and it's the and again, it can pull you out a little bit if you know their movie history and everything like that. But Gary Sinise is it's like one of his first starring roles, and he is excellent in this movie, playing basically the lead hero of this movie. So, what is your third movie that we're going to talk about today?
Well, I guess we couldn't leave out The Omen.
It's all for you.
Yeah. Um, The Omen was interesting because, again, it was around the same time I had seen The Exorcist, not long after that, and I was very young. And I didn't find it scary at all. I just heard how scary it was and how scary it was. And then it was just interesting. Like, I felt I was very academic about it.
Mhm.
You know, the little boy being the second coming, or being the whatever, the
Antichrist.
Antichrist, born as the Antichrist, and the priest being come to try and help him, and finding the 666 on his skull, and on his scalp and everything. Um, it was cinematically, I think, very good to look at, especially for something that long ago. It had
Mm.
that gritty quality you were referring to earlier. I almost think it could have been in black and white,
Mhm.
because of the entire aesthetic of the movie. But yeah, the religious themes are obviously huge. Huge. I mean, it's the whole thing. It's the whole good versus evil. And sorry, my husband is messaging me like other movies to add. Um, and I don't know. It, I don't think it was really scary, but if you're actually interested in the religious aspect of horror and how it's gotten intertwined, if you're a good Catholic looking for a spooky Halloween movie to watch, go ahead and watch that one.
It is
Classic.
not. Yeah, it's a classic. It's not super scary to me either, but it's got some creepy imagery. The pane of glass thing is one of those you go, oh, that's not pleasant. But one of the things that was interesting is they did, of course, they did a remake, and it was done in 2006 is when it was released. And part of the marketing campaign is they released it on June 6th, 2006, to be cute and funny. But actually, the remake is not bad. The problem is that instead of trying to forge its own identity, um, it basically did almost everything shot for shot. It was just slightly better effects.
Yeah.
And that's, you can give or take an update like that, but if it doesn't have its own heart, then um it's not going to be as fun.
Hmm.
um so the next one I'm picking
Oh.
is a little off topic, but not off topic, but it's a little off the beaten path. But I've enjoyed this movie multiple times, and it's called Fallen. It stars Denzel Washington and John Goodman, and it's the story is basically that this serial killer killed himself, and not ki- was executed, but there are now copycat killers popping around, supposedly killing people, and come to find out it is actually um, it's actually him possessing these others people because of a demonic ritual that he did to allow himself to do these kind of things. And here's one of the things, and it turned me off on this song completely, is that you know that it's him because he starts singing the Stones, "Time Is on My Side," and you just and it's like, time is on my side, and it's just like that. How did you turn that song creepy? But now I never want to listen to it again. It's just like, but it's very well done, and it's Denzel Washington. I don't think he's ever been in a bad movie. Even if the movie's been bad, as soon as he shows up, it's very good. And this and John Goodman is another one of those really great actors that can be in anything and
Man,
make it
he is
work.
so good.
I know, and people don't give him the credit he deserves, honestly. And he's really good, and I really enjoy that movie. And it's creepy, and you don't know what's going to happen, and you're just going, wow. So, have you seen The Fallen?
No,
No, that's definitely one that you may want to step up on, because that's a really good one. Honestly,
I will.
it. So, what is your next one?
Seven.
And
And
as soon as you typed this in today, I was like, oh, why didn't I think of that one? That's made me so angry.
yeah, seven is the one, kind of like the seventh sign with you. It was hard to not be pulled out of it because Brad Pitt, right?
Right,
At the time, especially because he was still kind of in pretty boy mode,
right.
as far as his career. And then it was like, holy crap. Um, so Seven is a story of a serial killer who is going around killing people based on the seven deadly sins, and it's very convoluted. It's kind of movie I like you said. It has a um, complex way of unfolding the story, so you're not quite sure what's going on and who's doing what. There's a lot of mystery involved in kind of solving the puzzles of what exactly is going on before it kicks into high gear. Um, bits of gore, but effectively used.
Mm-hmm.
And um, one of the reasons this was brought to mind actually is because I recently watched the um, hotel season of American Horror Story.
Mm-hmm.
And in that, there is a serial killer, as it turns out. Spoilers, sorry. Who's doing this? It's based on the seven deadly sins.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of surprised this hasn't happened more in real life, given religiously how people just have justified, like, God told me to or whatever, and serial killers having thematic overtones often, or trying to get caught and leaving clues. um, it's definitely a good movie plot. It was an excellent TV plot to build around, and I'm surprised it doesn't happen more in real life. So there's my actually being creepy for the day.
Yes, thanks, September. Yeah, thanks.
I'm
Everything.
not saying it's a good idea.
Thanks so much. Uh, you're fun at parties. I was just like, what
Oh
would be
yes.
you know what I don't understand? Why there aren't more serial killers using the seven deadly sins? I need to get another drink.
I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer. It's right there. You got a handbook, and it's the Bible.
Actually, it's not in the seven deadly sins.
No,
Aren't in the Bible.
no, but it's
Biblical.
it's biblical canon, right?
Yeah. So the next one, and then I've actually thought of another one because it hasn't been. So I haven't put it up, but I will at the end. But so I've got two more. So, but the next one for me is Stigmata. This one's interesting. So the premise basically is that this priest passes away, and then in Argentina or something, I can't remember, but it was in South America. And then this young woman in New York is suddenly showing signs of stigmatas. For those who don't know what the stigmatas are representations, bleeding actual wounds, representations of what Christ went through on the last day before he was nailed to the cross, including being nailed to the cross. It manifests in wounds on the wrist, wounds on the back, wounds on the feet, and wound on the side, and also the crown of thorns. So yeah, it's 1, 2, 3.
This is a
Yeah,
cool movie. Like,
it
I thought
is,
this
and
was a cool movie.
it also has a very interesting soundtrack that I actually like. It has a song by Chumbawamba called "Sweet Mary," but it's a remix, so it's kind of done in a techno kind of remix kind of thing. It's really very good. I like the soundtrack too, but it's an interesting movie. What basically comes out from this movie is that the reason why he was getting these stigmatas and everything and why he's possessing this young lady is because he had found a lost gospel that basically said that it was almost Gnostic in nature, but it was basically thought of that this was with the most accurate words from Jesus that basically stated that the kingdom of heaven is in all of us and God is in all of us, which of course the church can't have happen. So it then turns into this kind of pot boiler, as well as got supernatural elements in it, where they're trying to kill her because she has written out the gospel, and so that it doesn't get out and ruin the church. So we can definitely,
So
what
is that?
is
I'm trying to remember. It was so long. Is that why they send the priest who's like really just a science guy trying to discredit her, right?
right? Correct. Originally, at first, it's to discredit her, and then he not so much falls in love with her, but he tries to protect her. She does try to seduce him because, of course, it's a movie with a woman in it and a priest, so that's going to. I'm just like, of course,
I mean,
but
you got
yes,
Patricia Arquette. You may as well use her.
Yeah, and that's the only thing that it did fairly well in the box office. It wasn't great in the box office. It did okay, but she is not one of the best actresses in the world, for especially for this part. So, but she did okay. So, there's that. So, what is your movie?
Well, I just watched this last night because it's spoopy time. Um, and I don't want to give a lot of spoilers because it is available right now. It's not very old, and I watched it on Amazon or Netflix, one of them. And it's called Eli.
Hmm.
And it's a lot of people thought it was super bad, and then I watched the trailer and I thought that looks really spooky. I do want to watch that, so we did. Neither of us wants our time back. I watched it with my husband, and I really liked it. So it's a story of a boy who is a boy in a bubble. If y'all are familiar with that concept, you're like allergic to everything and have to live in a bubble. And his parents are seeking a cure, and they take him to a special facility where he's undergoing these genetic moderation or uh, modification treatments to fix and reset his immune system. Well, then there are ghosts, and then the ghosts, you don't know if they're good ghosts or bad ghosts or who's a ghost, and religious themes start to get inserted. His mother is very devout to begin with. They're always, they're praying a lot and having faith, and it's really, oh. All right, I'm gonna say shut it off now if you haven't seen it, folks. Take a break. Give me about a minute and a half to return to the show, or listen to the end of our show later. So, because the religious themes end up, there are twists and turns in this, and it never goes to full M. Night Shyamalan, level of, oh, what a twist, right? The twists are
Yeah.
very subtle. I am very good in watching any of these movies, or any movie. It's very hard for me to be misled or, you know, surprised by movies. I usually figure out, I'm usually a step ahead and like, oh, okay, I know where this is going. Um, it's very seldom, and it got me. It took a few left turns, but they were done in a subtle figuring out with the character along the way what was going on. But it looks like through most of the movie, like the doctor and her assistants are the bad guys and actually trying to hurt this kid, but you don't understand why. And then the ghosts are like they're as if they're trying to give him to these ghosts that are former patients that are dead. But then it looks like the ghosts are trying to help him. But why are they, trying to help him escape? What are they trying to do? And um, then the dad seems to be a little fishy, and then the mom seems to be a little fishy, but she keeps trying to protect him. And it ends up being where the doctor and her assistants are former nuns from some kind of religious organization. It turns out he is the son of the devil. The dad in the movie's only his half dad, but the mother's mother, and she had been praying and praying, and kids like, to who?
Hmm.
All the other kids had been treated, were also sons of the devil and daughters, and they all died through this process of the doctor was trying to genetically modify them and reset them to help them break free from their destiny to become, half demons wandering the earth. And this was all kind of a test to, is he strong enough to get through this? And the kid, eventually freaks out and manifests, and you, you know, and goes nuts as far as killing the doctor, former nun doctor,
Hmm.
and it's because he's strong enough to get out and go out into the world. And the mother's like, "I'll still take care of you." Um, there's one really bad effect in it where he turns his dad's head inside out, but the rest of the effects are really good. The acting is fantastic.
Hmm.
This kid is good. That definitely helps the believability. The effects are subtle as far as the ghosts. It's a lot of what we're used to seeing in modern horror with contortions and grittiness when it's
Hmm.
something that's not quite real. Um, So lots of little disturbing bits. You really feel for the kid, and then like all the good guys and bad guys get flipped back and forth a couple of times without it being jarring. So yeah, I really liked it, and it was a different take on the whole, you know, Antichrist thing. In that it adds to the lore that Dad gets around.
So, well, in that case, I guess we'll talk about this one. This is one that was suggested by September's husband, and Rob. Thanks for helping out. Is Rosemary's Baby, which is how Eli was conceived. Obviously, I know it's Rosemary's Baby is. I debated on putting this on originally because of the director and so my feelings about that, but that I
Ah,
we will separate the art from the artist on this one front. Especially considering you brought up Seven, I was like, well, we can do that then. But the movie basically follows this couple through them getting married and moving into this really nice apartment in New York and everything, and them trying to get have a baby and stuff like this. And come to find out, and a lot of these movies we're giving spoilers for, but a lot of these movies are over 20 plus years old, so I feel the shelf life of spoilers have long since passed on this point. Um, Basically the is a cult for Satan, and they basically drug her so that Satan will conceive with her, and it's basically her finding out all of this kind of stuff and trying to
so they're
figure
trying
out.
to create the second
Right,
coming,
right, and
or
she does
the
give birth.
Antichrist.
Right, she does give birth to the baby, and yeah, it has his father's eyes for those people who know that scene very well. But it's very well done. It's very shot. It's shot very well. Unfortunately, during the same time frame, Mia Farrow was in this was doing the movie. She was married to Frank Sinatra at the time. Frank Sinatra wanted her to give up her career as an actress, and halfway through shooting the movie he walks on sets and hands her divorce papers, and for her to so there's some history behind this as well, and it's just very interesting that she still plowed through and gave an amazing performance. This is really it's really woman centric and very, and she has to carry quite a bit of this movie. There's a lot of other cast members that do some of the lifting, but she has to be the one that does the heavy lifting. But one of the things is that she was Catholic, and she and you also see her kind of give up her faith during the same time frame, because that's something that needs to be done, and so through subtle manipulations here and there, you see her drop her rosary, or especially in the book, because it's based on a book. She basically leaves she leaves she leaves her faith, and that's part of the situation. So, and they also talk about in the book, in the movie, they talk about how they have to find a woman who's not a virgin, versus the virgin birth of Jesus. It has to. So basically, they talk about all the opposites of what Mary is.
Cults are
That's
so funny like that, right?
yeah, yeah. It's
We have to
like
make up a
yeah.
dogma, so let's pick this other one and choose all the opposite things, and that'll be ours.
Mhm. Another one I wanted to touch on, and I don't know if you've seen this one, but it stars Christopher Walken, and it's called Prophecy.
Oh wow, yeah,
Um,
I'd
I
forgotten about
re-
that one.
Yeah, that one is very enjoyable. Christopher Walken is not so much Christopher Walken, but he does. It's Christopher Walken. There's always Christopher Walken in it, but it also stars a young Weaving, basically playing Satan in this as well. And it's been a while since I've seen it, but I remember the fact that Christopher Walken is basically playing one of the angels of God, I think Gabriel, in fact, and he is trying. And the creepiest scene that still sticks out in my head is him teaching kids how to play a trumpet.
Mm-hmm.
And as someone who grew up, Baptist, we, the trumpet sounds the start of the apocalypse, and he's trying to find someone who can play the trumpet to start the apocalypse. Is basically what,
Yeah.
Gabriel's kind of gone on his own to try to try to set this up and everything else. Um, because he feels that it's time to bring on the apocalypse. So, and even Satan's going, I kind of like the gig that's going on right now because I know what happens at the end of the apocalypse. So I'm kind of happy where I am. So we need to stop him. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny.
So
One of
yeah.
my favorite kind of religious themed horror movies isn't really Christianity based.
Mm,
It's
which
The
one's that?
Serpent and the Rainbow.
I thought about putting that one in, and then I realized I'd never watched the complete movie because of the trailer. They put a tarantula on a man's face. I'm
Oh, goodness
saying.
gracious.
That's like, no, nope, I can't.
Too scary. I'm out. Oh, boy.
I'm out.
Yeah, I
uh,
really, really love that movie. Jacob's Ladder is another one that's it's more an old godsy flavor.
yeah,
But those are horror movies. But Serpent and the Rainbow, the religious theme being very voodoo and
yeah.
yeah, exploring the origins of that those myths, I
Mhm.
found like very, very compelling. And it's that whole puzzle pieces, psychological horror. The torture scenes being enacted by people
Right.
are super. Like that's more scary to me than like some faceless or nameless monster when you're being nailed through the scrotum to get you to get the hell off the trail and out of our culture. That's truly horrifying. I guess people
Thanks.
would do that. So,
Yeah, and the thought of that made my eye water. Thank you very much.
well.
Yeah. Um, One that I've been now, I will
So
mention I
why do
haven't.
you think this though? Before we go to more movies, because I think we reached. I mean, we could just list the examples forever.
Right.
Um, there are a lot. Funny enough, if you look for a list of religious themes in horror films, you get really short lists, like 5 and 10. But we know there's more than that. We came up with more than that off the top of our heads for the
Right.
show. And why? Is it easy pickings? Do we think that there's enough of these that are good that it's my theory, I think, is it calls to, just like religion calls to filling a need. Um, we have our faith and we have gods to explain phenomena we don't understand, and so when you're looking at horror and things that are afraid of you, of course, as a creator, you would want to tap into that kind of primal thing that religion
Hmm.
does.
It's any horror movie, but like religious horror movies, what it does is it twists the normal. I'm going to use a non religious movie as an example, but think of Halloween. Halloween is supposed to be fun, as far as what it is in modern times, supposed to be fun and all this kind of stuff. Masks are supposed to be fun, and it's in suburbia, and it's kind of it manifest nightmares of there could just be some crazy person wandering around in a mask killing people just for no reason other than it's there. It's a twisting of while I'm in this safe suburban area. It's a twisting of that, and I think that's part of it. Is that it takes a religion. I mean, you look at you look at like Wicker Man or The Exorcist,
Right.
and or even Carrie. Look at Carrie is a prime example. It's a twisting or it's taking a religious theme to the extreme. Her mom was extremely religious, and that in its own right, there was a movie I almost put on here called Red State by Kevin Smith.
Can you believe
That
I have not seen that?
it is a good,
I love Kevin Smith and I have not seen that movie.
it's a decent movie. It's a little bit out of his wheelhouse. It's a lot better than the Walrus one that he did, which was just horrible. But this one's very good.
It's not Yoga Hosers.
Yeah, no, no, it's
Okay.
it's very interesting. as far as red state is concerned. But again, it's taking religion to an extreme, and I think that that is terrifying. I mean, because we deal with, especially nowadays, if you think about it nowadays, Carrie's mom is one step away from strapping on a bomb and walking in, strapping on, a bomb and walking into a school. I mean, if you think about it,
Yeah.
for today's time, and so because so that is one of those situations where that is part of it. Part of it is because religion is something that I hate to use the word cling to, but it's something that gives us comfort and gives us solace. And when you look at the dark side of religion and the fact that there has been a lot of pain and suffering caused because of religion, and then that also takes effect into it. And I will be perfectly honest, there's probably a lot of these directors and writers and stuff, I know, like Stephen King's one, because he talks about it in his on writing, that it's a fascination for him growing up in religion and stuff like that, seeing how it can be twisted and how it can be used in bad ways. And not all of these are people twisting it. It's taking, again, it's like the Omen is, or again, The Exorcist, or Stigmata, any of these kind of movies that are, or even The Seven Signs, is taking this to, all right, how would this play out in society, especially today's society? How would, the Antichrist coming, how is that going to play out for people who are basically raising the son of Satan, supposedly, or
Mm-hmm.
how does that play out? How do you? It's like Eli. It's what you were talking about with Eli. I have not seen that movie, but way you described it is it taking that to the extreme of how we deal with, you know what humanity would do if they're a parent and they realize that they are, you know uh do you just stop loving a child just because they have the ability to become the Antichrist?
Well, and
You
it
know,
was
it,
really, yeah, because I mean, she obviously loved him, and actually, the story ended up turning on that because she wanted him so badly. She just wanted a child, and she couldn't have a child, and she prayed and she prayed and she prayed, and God wasn't answering her, so she prayed to someone else who said, "I can do that," and oh, he won't be like me, but of course he always lies. Um, and then she, ended up from his birth trying to find solutions for it. And the whole him being allergic to everything, Bubble Boy, was they had been feeding him immune suppressants his whole life to keep him isolated and convince him of that so they could get him this treatment later.
right.
So, yeah, it was really like what would happen? Like, what would you do if you got yourself in this situation and this is your child? Um, I think it did a good job with that, but again, that's the sort of thing that appeals to me because I like my horror complicated. Sorry, everybody.
No, no,
If you're looking for just your standard woohoo, woo that was scary gore, don't ask me for recommendations. You're not gonna get any of that.
no, I do. Just I do. I'm not a big fan of gore. I will watch some of
Oh,
it. Like, one of my favorite movies of
actually,
all time is called The Audition,
mm,
and that's a Japanese movie, and you've got to have a strong stomach for that one.
yeah,
But
actually, I'll modify that because if you want that kind of movie, I can give that kind of recommendation. To me, it's not horror. It's almost a whole different thing to me. Like I'll watch I'll MST3K, like just bad horror with just gore and unjustifiable, like just crazy, like Zombie Women of Satan, which has neither Satan nor zombies, but it has midgets taking his shit and talking about it for a long time, and burlesque performers being murdered randomly, and I love that. But I don't like it's not in horror anymore because I don't find it scary.
right, that's more of, oh, that is MS,
Like this is
that
just
is
awesome, right? Or
yeah,
Army of
yeah,
Darkness, right?
yeah.
That
Army,
brand of horror I'm all over.
but to be fair, Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness, and Evil Dead, it does have religious overtones to it, but Evil Dead and Army of Darkness are more campy. I mean, they have horrific, scary monster kind of things in it. especially the first Evil Dead, the tree scene. Even the director said, I might have went a bit too far on that. But it was back in this, early '80s, late '70s, early '80s, and there was a lot of exploitation films out there that was very questionable. But one I want to see and I haven't seen, and I keep kicking myself for not seeing it yet because I hear it's very good, and it's religious overtones in several ways. Is the Witch, or because they spell it with two V's,
Oh,
the
right.
Witch. The Witch. Have you seen that one?
No, but I keep hearing a lot about it, and it kept coming up in the research too. Is like one of the top religious
Yeah.
themed ones. So,
But that's one I want to see. But another one that I have seen and I own a copy, and it's probably the movie that creeped me out the most. It's not scary, but it definitely disturbed me to the point where when I was a nanny after seeing this movie, I could not put a child in a corner. I still can't to this day. It just creeps me out. Is The Blair Witch. Have you seen that movie?
yeah,
You're not a
I
fan.
never, I don't know. I think it scared the heck out of Rob. I don't know. I just never bought into it. It didn't convince me. I mean, it was groundbreaking at the time. To me, it was about the cinematography, right? Like that single first person camera work, like as
Mhm.
if it were kids documenting this actually happening. And I don't, it never grabbed me.
I think part of what I knew it wasn't real. But the viral, they I think even like sci-fi even did run this like half hour little thing about the missing kids and stuff like this.
Yeah.
The viral stuff that went on for this was actually more intriguing to me than the movie itself. The movie was creepy in its own rights, don't get me wrong, especially the last it's a movie of two parts. The first part is basically these kids, or three parts technically, because it is a three-act structure. But the first part is these kids are wandering around this town, getting interviews about this legend of this witch that would kidnap children, kill them. And then the second part is them wandering lost in the woods, and it's three college kids. And so what drew me away from the movie is none of them got together, and for at least, especially during the tension and stuff, and B, there was no pot. Come on, really? I'm like, come on, really? So those two things kind of like, you go, mm, that's not completely true. But then the third part was really where it got, especially when they get in the house, is really just creepy as hell. But it has that witch overtone, and that's also an interesting thing because witch is a religious thing. Why do you think witches still are in horror movies today? Do you have a theory on that?
Hmm. Well, because it's still a mystery. Because it's not mainstream. I mean, it's an easy target. It's been an easy target for centuries.
Mhm.
I mean, you look at origins and mass conversions of Catholicism. They were demonizing and calling witches herbalists, and just the healers in the community to take power away from women would be part of my theory based on the history of it. Because the Catholics and the Christian churches, you can only get to the highest ranks. You can only be a priest if you're a man, and I think there was a lot of just trying to take power away. And the wise women in the villages, it was very often women back in the day who were doing the healing, and nobody really understood what they were doing, picking herbs and mashing them up and making a poultice, or and charms for your home, or whatever was being done by the Wicca,
Mhm.
which by the wise women. I mean, taking that power from them. So they were demonized, they were hanged, they were, trials. They started look at Salem, um, where, oh, my, husband is doing something terrible, so I'm going to accuse the woman he's cheating on me with of being a witch, and then she gets killed, type things like in the Crucible, fiction
Mhm.
or not. Women, people in general that are different, are made easy targets.
Mhm.
And if you continue to make them something scary, and then you can make them into the bad guy just because they're different. And unfortunately,
And I
that's not going away in our society anytime soon. But anything that's different.
No, and we're going to end this, but I do want to say that I do know that, especially, I don't know about the Middle East, but I know in a lot of the like India and Vietnam and China and Japan, they do have a lot of their own horror movies that are religious based. In some cases, especially like in Japan, it's heavily
Oh yeah, I watched an
religious based.
anime that was super religious based, but I didn't add it recently. I'm trying to remember the name of it. Oh man, it was like heaven and hell and everything.
Yeah, so it's one of those, you so it is, I don't want to say universal, but it is definitely cultural that that a culture will find horror in the thing that's supposed to bring them comfort. And I think that's the dichotomy. I think that's why they do well as they do, and some are considered classics.
Well, and so much of, and we, it did come up a little bit before. In so many of these, the religious figures are the good guys, right? And
Mm,
whatever is other is the bad guys.
right. Uh, um, uh, so it's an interest. Looking at that. These are some recommendations if you haven't seen some, especially some of the older ones. If you have seen these, if you have some more, definitely definitely shoot us some that you think are really good that we may have not talked about. But we are going to end today. We're going to do our carrot and stick still. Next week we'll be talking about Good Omens, which is kind of that I kind of wanted to do it this way, where we talk about broad and then go into a specific, not horror, but because it's not, but basically talk about a religious tonal movie, a TV series or book that is in the mainstream, and dissect that a little bit. So the carrot, would you? So I picked.
Sure.
Yeah, so I'll let September do the carrot.
Even though I had not even looked at it yet, let's go see what's going on. So, Chef Jose Andres was thanking the Nationals for inviting an immigrant to throw the first pitch in a game full of immigrants, inviting me to represent millions of first responders doing amazing work helping everyone, especially WC Kitchen. Today we passed 1.5 million meals in the Bahamas alone. So, yay! It's, Major League Baseball, if you missed it. The Nationals, the Astros had an immigrant who's doing really good um, charity work to feed people to throw out the first pitch of their game.
Yeah, what he's doing is he's
And what's
basically
going on in baseball? Like, they were booing Trump and chanting "Lock him up" too, man. What baseball
and this
fans? You go. What?
yeah, at the same in the same game. So yeah, but it's the reason I wanted to bring him up is because he's a world famous chef. He's actually up for the Nobel Peace Prize because of his world feed kitchen, um, where he is basically, he takes groups of people to go feed people who have been devastated by some kind of natural disaster. Um, the Bahamas is one example, but he did that back in Puerto Rico and stuff like that. So he's been doing that for a while, and it's a big deal, because one of the things that people don't have is power or and clean watering, or food sources, and to feed these people, to make sure that they have a healthy meal that isn't canned, chef RID, and to help them, because that's where does helps fight off the disease by making sure that their diet is still good. So I think he definitely is worth that. So I've been
Hmm.
doing a little bit of work for that, and of course the stick. We're going with Trump, and
He's
it's
an easy
not,
target.
and it's not for the impeachment and stuff like that. I have not been following the impeachment as much as I should probably, but on the same thing, I'm just like, I'm tired right now. Because especially for me in September, we do remember what happened with the Clinton impeachment and what that did. And I'm weary. I think it's a lot more legitimate. Don't get me wrong. Than Clinton, but Clinton did break the law, and so, but I don't want to say legitimate. I think it's more earth
It was nowhere
shaking.
near
Yeah,
this. I don't want to
yeah, yeah,
discount what he did, but uh, actually betraying the country with the abuse of power is different.
yeah. It is. But what I want to talk about is him basically pulling out of Syria and leaving the Kurds to basically be slaughtered. The Kurds who have been allies of ours since the first Iraq War in the 90s. And it is to they're an ally, but there are basically statements that, but because Trump has like two Trump towers in Turkey, that, and of course Russia would also benefit if the Kurds were out of the way. That that's why
Oh, and
he's
his
stepping back.
outright threatening to withhold aid style of negotiating was gross.
Yeah, yeah. It's so all of this is like yeah, he definitely gets the stick for this because it's just like it's just, I mean, it's just dirty politics in general, and it's just wrong to do that to someone, to a group of people that we've helped out and that has helped us out
Yeah.
immensely in that area. So with that said, next week again, good omens. So I want to thank you for joining us at Heresy and Hearsay. I'm Reverend Barney. You can follow me on Twitter at SethRothII. You can find the show on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, podcast, any podcast catcher, as well as our website. Don't forget to just Google us. Don't forget we have a Patreon page. $2 a month can keep us going.
And I'm September. You can follow me on Twitch and Twitter at 9 of 12. That's NINEOF 1 2. And hear me on the Geek Grills podcast. Thanks for listening today, and bless your hearts. I heard an echo there. What the hell was that? I hope
Not
I'm not
sure.
echoing. Oh my god. Alright, I'm going to end the